I call a subject that which results from the relation, and so to speak, from the relentless fight between living beings and apparatuses.
Flicker theory without a spin the cord. Flicker theory without a spin the cord.
Apparatus. Open the bottom doors. Apparatus. Hello everyone, Tadas Pinocchio here. Welcome to yet another installment of Flicker Theory Reviews. Today I am reviewing Giorgio Agamben's What is an Apparatus? Or in Italian, Che cos'è un dispositivo? Today we're looking at something rather exciting, maybe even a tad dangerous, but at any rate, very intriguing. We're looking at, you guessed it, the theory of biopolitics. Now, before I begin, I would just like to acknowledge the fact that there's no reason to say that the field of biopolitics represents something dangerous or intriguing. There's no reason to render biopolitics mystical or arcane. There's no reason to describe biopolitics in the same way one would describe an erotic novel. Dangerous and intriguing. Give me a break. You see, part of the message that is articulated by Flicker Theory Reviews is that theory ought to be palpable. Theory belongs to the people, and therefore, if anything, biopolitics belongs to our routine, everyday life. Hence, in this video, I will explain simply why and in what ways does the field of biopolitics belong to the quotidian life. When we talk about the themes, the topics that arise within contemporary philosophy, it is impossible to miss the field of biopolitics. There's an elephant in a room. In today's world, we stand witness to the more challenging global problems. For example, how do we negotiate human rights and citizen rights in the age of mass migration, for example? What do we do with the threat of terrorism, and how do we ensure security as a human right? What is there to be done when global control, biopower, functions on a massive scale, when human beings are perceived as populations, bodies, biological clusters rather than subjects in their own right? What do we do? Biopolitics defines an interdisciplinary edifice of critical thought which combines law, politics, and also bioscience. Biopolitics, I should add, also harks back to such philosophers as Nietzsche and Schopenhauer and Bergson and their notion of philosophy of life, Lebensphilosophie. These people oppose visceral, bodily experiences to the abstract, conceptual and soulless rational activities. For these philosophers, there was something within the civilization, within the project of enlightenment, rationalization, that undermined life, instinct and intuition. Before one tries to delve deeper into biopolitics, it is often fruitful to apprehend the rudimentary dichotomy of bias and zoe. This dichotomy goes back to Aristotle himself, who essentially defined the relationship between the naked life, zoe, bare, not accredited form of living, and political existence, or bias, accredited, legitimized, and franchised form of living. These two forms of living make up the foundation of biopolitics. Very, very often in biopolitics, the problematic at hand is the following. How will the naked form of life struggle, rebel against the political power? And how will the political power will try to seize, appropriate, control the naked, bare, more dynamic forms of living? Anyway, today we're discussing Agamben's article called What is an Apparatus? Which, in my opinion, will do a terrific job at kicking us off with the field of biopolitics. So, Agamben is an Italian philosopher who focuses on biopolitics. He's famous for such concepts as homo saucer, form of life, state of exception. Agamben is one of the main proponents of the field of biopolitics. Very often in his writing, Agamben tries to define his own conception of naked life. He analyzes new forms of discipline and control and comments on his intellectual influences such as Carl Schmitt, Michel Foucault, or Hannah Arendt, and others. Having said that, today I will only focus on Agamben's article called What is an Apparatus? Apparatus. In this essay, Agamben takes up the term coined by Foucault, namely dispositive. I'm not sure if that's the right way to pronounce it, or apparatus in English. Agamben thinks that given its significance in Foucault's theory, the term apparatus deserves close reading. Well, says Agamben, Foucault mentions this term, apparatus, when he starts talking about governmentality. For Foucault, apparatus is a heterogeneous set of discourses, institutions, architectural forms, also regulatory decisions, laws, administrative measures, or scientific statements, philosophical, moral propositions. In short, for Foucault, the apparatus is a set of discursive relations which have a concrete strategic function and are always related to power relation. I will emphasize this. When we talk about apparatus, we talk about power relations. For Foucault, the apparatus is linked with power through knowledge. The apparatus decides in what ways do the power relations reciprocate relations of knowledge. In other words, apparatuses decide in what ways human beings are to be controlled, not just physically, but also mentally. Then Agamben goes on to discuss history of the term apparatus. He finds out that Hippolyte, French Hegelian philosopher, had a big influence on Foucault's understanding of apparatus. Agamben discusses Hippolyte's work on Hegel. According to Hippolyte, positivity and destiny are the two key concepts in Hegel's thought. Positivity as a concept is best understood when one compares the concepts of natural religion and positive religion. Natural religion and positive religion. Natural religion is concerned with the immediate and general relation of human reason with the divine, while the positive religion encompasses the rules, beliefs, and rights that are imposed on the individual at a certain historical moment, instance. Natural religion describes what do you believe in, while positive religion describes, how do you believe in something, or when do you believe in something? Open the pod bay doors, apparatus. In Hippolyte's view, natural religion as an immediate relation to the divine corresponds with freedom, while the positive religion as a set of imperatives at a historical moment corresponds with obligation. According to Agamben, Foucault borrows the term positivity and thereby borrows the definition of the term positivity or apparatus as a relation between human beings and their historical reality. So, what is this historical reality? Well, according to Agamben, historical reality is the set of institutions, processes of subjectification, and of rules in which power relations become concrete. Again, I'm describing here the apparatus, a set of mechanisms that constitute power relations, right? Considering that Hippolyte, the French Hegelian philosopher, used the variant of the term apparatus, positivity, it is clear that apparatus does not find its origin in Foucault's thought. That's a term, at least. Furthermore, having in mind the fact that Foucault disliked using universal terms such as the state or the sovereignty or the power of the law, it becomes clear that apparatus denotes a relation, a connection that binds all these authorities together. Further in his essay, Agamben takes a look at the theological genealogy of economy. Here he discusses the Greek term oikonomia. And let's remember this word. Let's capture this word, oikonomia. This term signifies the administration of the oikos, the home. And more generally, oikonomia means management. After discussing oikonomia, Agamben shifts his attention to a very important debate in the history of Christianity, the debate of the Trinity. When the fathers of church, Christian church, started arguing about the threefold nature of divinity, a lot of people resisted this idea. For them, Trinity sounded a lot like, flirtation with polytheism, a kind of paganism. However, the theologians, such as Tertullian, found a way to solve this conundrum. They took the Greek word oikonomia and imposed it on the concept of Trinity. The reasoning being that God is obviously one, singular, but insofar as he administers his life, his home, the world that he created, he needs oikonomia, management. He needs the Holy Spirit and the Son, oikonomia. The management therefore signifies the incarnation of the Son. Following this, apparatus, in the same way as oikonomia, designates that in which and through which one realizes the pure activity of governance devoid of any foundation of being or ontology. You experience this every time you're dealing with bureaucracy. You only deal with representatives of authority, mediators, apparatchiks, desk jockeys of all shapes and sizes. They issue reports, waive fees, and file data and more data. All this is devoid of foundation of being of the law. It's oikonomia. It's the management. It has nothing to do with the being of the law. Then Agamben invites the reader to participate in his thought experiment. Let's forget all that we learned about apparatus so far, and let's imagine a clear-cut dichotomy of, on the one hand, living beings, and on the other, apparatuses, living beings, and apparatuses. That is to say, let's conceive the distinction of apparatuses and living beings, of machines that disseminate power, knowledge, and bear living beings. Oikonomia of apparatuses on the one hand, and ontology of the creatures on the other. This dichotomy allows Agamben to call apparatus anything that has in some way the capacity to capture, orient, determine, interpret, model, control, or secure the gestures, behaviors, opinions, or discourses of living beings. Agamben doesn't just, generally describe the apparatus. He says apparatus is everything that is not part of the ontology of creatures. Everything that is foreign to the living being. That is the apparatus. Open the pod bay doors, apparatus. Furthermore, as Agamben is drawing this distinction of apparatuses and living beings, apparatuses and living beings, he introduces a new notion, that of the subject. Subject is something that is able to synthesize oikonomia, management of apparatuses, and also the naked life. Subject is something that surfaced from the murky fight between these two facets, apparatus and living naked life. To quote Agamben, I call a subject that which results from the relation, and so to speak, from the relentless fight between living beings and apparatuses. Let's think about that. Okay, so let's recapitulate. Let's assume that we as aspiring subjects are battling our way to subjectivity, where we try to grapple with unruly forces, the ontology of creatures or naked life, and the oikonomia of apparatuses. So what's the best way of achieving the subjectivity without being corrupted, spoiled by the apparatus? Well, Agamben says it's not as if we can simply get rid of apparatuses or stop using them. Not that easy. Agamben gives us an example of a cell phone. He does not like cell phones because it renders human interaction ever more abstract. So what do we do with the cell phone? A portable, pocket apparatus. What do we do with it? As much as Agamben hates cell phones, he admits that deactivating all cell phones would not be smart, let alone feasible. In fact, Agamben explains the relative importance of apparatuses. So, Agamben says, apparatuses are not a mere accident in which humans are caught by chance, but rather they're rooted in the very process of humanization that made humans out of the animals we classify under the rubric Homo sapien. In other words, tools, machines that we utilize or create define us as human beings, such tools as Gutenberg's press or steam engine or nuclear power define a particular historical moment and make up its context. So the fight with the apparatus is not straightforward. Our strategy cannot be a simple one. There's something in the apparatus that allows human beings to be free and docile at the same time. Agamben says that the problem with the contemporary society is that all apparatuses essentially stopped producing the subject and instead began this whole campaign of desubjectification. Agamben, in a rather somber tone, says that today's politics does not presuppose the existence of subjects. Instead, the politics of today envelop us in the field of oikonomia, management. People are constantly desubjectified by the apparatuses. Apparatuses are profane, Agamben says. He compares the sacred objects in Roman law, which belong to gods, with the apparatuses of today. In Roman law, if people started handling the sacred objects, these would have become profane. Well, according to Agamben, today the entirety of oikonomia is purely profane. We use apparatuses on a daily basis in a way we don't even use the apparatus. Apparatus uses us. For Agamben, this is a problem. Open the pod bay doors, apparatus. I would like to end this episode by inviting all of you to intervene in your own process of subjectification. Don't let the apparatus consume you. Love you all. See you next time.